Good evening. On behalf of the City of Tampa and the Florida Department of Transportation, our team would like to welcome you to tonight's virtual public meeting for the El Prado Boulevard Complete Streets and Sidewalk Project. We will now run a brief presentation about the project, and we will take your questions immediately after.
Virtual public meeting regarding the City of Tampa El Prado Boulevard Complete Streets and Sidewalk Improvements Project. Tonight, we will be presenting information about the project. We hope you find it informative and provide feedback. Before we begin, we would like to provide some important information about participating in this webinar for those attending using a computer, tablet, or smartphone. First, we'll access the control panel on GoToWebinar. On your desktop, you should have a small toolbar with a few buttons to the right of your screen. Simply click on the orange arrow at the top to expand the toolbar. On your mobile device, simply tap the screen to display the same options. This displays the control panel, enabling you to ask a question or download project files. To download project files, simply click on a file within the list when viewing in desktop. When viewing in mobile, click on the document icon. This will display the list of files to download, including a comment form if you'd like to submit a comment by mail at a later date, as well as the project fact sheet and a PDF of this presentation. For those calling in, you may request these documents by calling or emailing the City of Tampa Project Manager. His contact information will be provided later in the presentation. Finally, to ask a question at any time throughout the presentation, please type the question into the field marked Questions at the bottom of the desktop menu. From your mobile device, simply click the question mark and enter your question at the bottom of the page that opens. For those calling in, contact information to reach the City of Tampa Project Manager to ask questions and provide comments will be provided later in the presentation. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 states that no person shall, on the basis of his or her race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance pursuant to the requirements of Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The Mayor and City Council value diversity and welcome input from all interested parties. Moreover, the city does not tolerate discrimination in any of its federally assisted programs, services, or activities. The City of Tampa will not exclude participation in, deny the benefits of, or subject to discrimination anyone on the grounds of race, color, and national origin. Any person wishing to make a complaint can do so by contacting the city's Office of Human Rights. Now that we have covered how to navigate the GoToWebinar control panel, we will show you the exciting improvements we have planned for El Prado Boulevard. Again, thank you for sharing your time with us this evening to learn about this project. As part of Mayor Jane Castor's Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow initiative, aka T3, a transportation advisory team was set up to focus on key issues facing our city and find smart solutions that will improve the quality of life for our community. The Transportation Advisory Committee developed 5 key points to improve Tampa's transportation. 1. Implement strategic transit projects. 2. Reimagine trails and greenways as viable transportation options. 3. Adopt Vision Zero as a citywide policy. 4. Reinvent urban parking and mobility. 5. Enhance neighborhood engagement. Available to answer questions tonight are members of the project team. For the City of Tampa, Ben Money, Project Manager, and Cal Hardy, Capital Projects Manager, are present. We are also joined by members of the consultant team. Bruno Fiore with AECOM, and Chris Mears with Native Engineering. A portion of this project will be funded through Transportation Alternatives grants administered by the Florida Department of Transportation. A complete streets design approach encourages safe mobility for all users by providing places to walk, cross the street, catch a bus, or ride a bike. Different means of transportation, such as cars, walking, transit, and biking, are called modes. Complete streets are designed so all modes of transportation can share the roads safely. This is called a multimodal design approach. Complete streets improve safety, promote active transportation, improve health, lower transportation costs, provide transportation alternatives, ease congestion, and create a sense of community. It is important to design a street to the surrounding context. There is no single design application for complete streets. Each one is unique and responds to its community context. El Prado Boulevard generally falls within the C4 Urban General Designation of the Florida Design Manual. El Prado Boulevard serves as a collector roadway connecting neighborhoods, a commercial corridor with a variety of shops, a neighborhood center connecting people to schools and places of worship, a residential roadway with residences lining both sides of the road. The improvements proposed along El Prado Boulevard extend from South Omar Avenue to Bayshore Boulevard, with additional coordination in the commercial district. We are in the very early stages of design, and your input and suggestions are valuable. A second public meeting showing more details of the proposed improvements will be held when the design is further along. The background behind this project is as follows. In 2009, the City of Tampa updated its comprehensive plan to encourage growth within Tampa's three core business centers, downtown, West Shore, and University of South Florida, USF. This vision for infill and urban redevelopment is predicated on enhancing the mobility without relying exclusively on automobiles. In 2011, the Hillsborough County MPO and City of Tampa produced a plan which identified low-cost options to enhance bicycle and pedestrian mobility around the three business centers. The 2012 City of Tampa Walk Bike Plan identified feasible project candidates along approximately 30 roadway corridors in and around the three business centers. In the next few slides, we will examine deficiencies within the corridor that were noted by our project team. Currently, El Prado Boulevard has deteriorated pavement, damaged drainage inlets, and several areas of stormwater ponding. Several pedestrian access deficiencies also exist along El Prado Boulevard, such as missing sidewalk on the north side of the road, sidewalk gaps on the south side, no access to pedestrian push buttons at the signalized intersections, conflicts with existing parking, pedestrian routes that do not conform to the standards of the American with Disabilities Act, ADA, tripping hazards along the existing walkways. There are currently several barriers to pedestrian and multimodal access along El Prado Boulevard, including missing pedestrian features at the CSX Railroad and lack of safe pedestrian crossings at frequent intervals throughout the corridor. The picture on the right shows an example of an enhanced crossing on Harbor Island. This crossing includes a raised crosswalk as well as rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs. There is one area of the El Prado Boulevard where the surrounding context of the roadway changes significantly. This area is the commercial district west of Manhattan Avenue to Lois Avenue. In this area, there are significant sidewalk gaps and no safe accessible routes to businesses, multiple conflicts with vehicle parking spaces and bicyclists and pedestrians, and non-ADA compliant cross slopes. The city will be meeting with property owners in this area to discuss potential solutions. This section will discuss the elements of road diet. El Prado Boulevard currently carries an annual average daily traffic volume of 4,200 to 9,000 vehicles per day. Roadways that experience this level of traffic are considered great candidates for a road diet by the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA. Road diets are listed by the FHWA as one of 20 proven safety countermeasures. Studies have proven that road diets create streets that are safer, easier to use, and provide better experiences for pedestrians and cyclists. Road diets have a superb safety record. Various studies have shown reductions in crashes after road diets were implemented. Reductions range between 19 to 47%. The figures on the right illustrate why road diets may experience fewer crashes. Road diets reduce conflict points. Conflict points are areas where two vehicles cross paths, which are opportunities for crashes. The removal of a passing lane allows for slower traffic to dictate the speed. The chart on the right from the City of Austin's manual, Redesigning the Street, published in 2014, shows speeding reductions on roadways that had recently been road dieted. Now that we have gone over the benefits of road diets, this section will explore how the removed vehicular lanes can be repurposed. What is right sizing? El Prado Boulevard has excess space dedicated to vehicles that sits largely unused. Right sizing is the process of reallocating pavement and right-of-way space to better serve the context of the roadway and goals of the community. The design team investigated reallocating the unused pavement with a bike lane on the left side or a bike lane on the right side of the roadway. During this analysis, it became clear that each alternative introduces advantages and disadvantages. Let's first discuss the alternative with the bike lane on the left side, as shown in this slide. The advantage to this alternative is that the bicyclist will travel on a lane that is not interrupted by waste management or delivery trucks. The major disadvantage to the bike lane on the left side is that the bicyclist is trapped when a vehicle encroaches onto the bike lane to pass a stopped vehicle in the travel lane. This is identified as the most severe or unsafe conflict. Another disadvantage with this alternative is that the level of service will drop. In other words, the capacity and free flow of vehicles will be interrupted and delayed by the stopped mail service, deliveries, and waste management trucks. Now let's go over the alternative with the bike lane on the right side of the roadway, as shown in this slide. The advantage of implementing the bike lane on the right side is that it meets driver expectancy and the level of service is kept at its highest. The vehicles in the travel lane are uninterrupted by the stopped waste management or delivery trucks. The added advantage of this alternative is that the bicyclist will decide how to safely get around the stopped mail service, deliveries, and waste management trucks. If there are no vehicles in the travel lane, the bicyclist could opt to use that lane to pass. Another option to the bicyclist could be to get around the obstruction by using the sidewalk. The main disadvantage with this alternative is that the waste management and delivery vehicles are in the bike lane. From Omar Avenue to McDill Avenue, the roadway footprint will be changed to incorporate a 2-foot paved shoulder near the median, a 10-foot vehicular lane, and an 8-foot buffered bike lane. It's called a buffered bike lane because it is separated from the travel lane by a double white stripe, approximately 2 feet apart. The buffer will also allow for physical protection features such as raised separators at conflict points, such as intersections. The roadside improvements include adding continuous sidewalk on both sides of the roadway. From McDill Avenue to Bayshore Boulevard, The roadway footprint won't change much. The on-street parking will remain as is. To provide continuity to the bicyclist along this constrained segment, the existing travel lanes will be designated as Sharrow lanes. The Sharrow pavement markings will alert the driving public that they are sharing the travel lane with bicyclists. New sidewalk will be added along the north side of the roadway. New sidewalk will also be added where there are currently gaps in the sidewalk along the south side of the roadway. This continuous pedestrian path will improve pedestrian safety. Road Diet provides traffic calming benefits. The city is also considering the following other traffic calming measures: enhanced signage, delineators, raised crosswalks, and RRFBs. The city is considering adding frequent enhanced pedestrian crossings throughout the corridor to provide safe and convenient pedestrian access to schools, parks, and other features. The chart on the right includes areas where the city is already considering enhanced crossings. Making El Prado Boulevard safer for pedestrians is one of the driving forces behind this project. As shown in Figure 1 on the left, speed is the #1 contributing factor to pedestrian deaths. The likelihood that a pedestrian survives a crash greatly decreases as speed increases. This chart shows that a person hit by a driver traveling at 40 miles per hour has an 80% chance of dying, compared to only 10% for a crash where a driver is traveling at 20 miles per hour. Multiple threat crashes can occur on multi-lane roadways where a vehicle is obscuring a pedestrian in the crosswalk. In Figure 2, on the right, the driver of car A is yielding to a pedestrian within the crosswalk. However, his vehicle is obscuring the pedestrian's view of car B, as well as the driver's view of the pedestrian. This project provides for speed controls through complete streets designs. The proposed elimination of 2 travel lanes will reduce the risk of multiple threat crashes and reduce the overall distance of vehicular lanes that a pedestrian must cross. Additionally, new sidewalks will provide a greater pedestrian experience, and enhanced crosswalks with rectangular rapid flashing beacons will allow for safer pedestrian crossings. To the east of the railroad crossing, Drexel Avenue is a skewed intersection with excessively long crossing distances. This is an example of improving pedestrian safety by modifying the geometry of the curb line to shorten the crosswalk lengths. There are many steps in the design process, including permit approvals and utility certifications. What highlighted here are the project schedule key milestones. The design plans for this project is anticipated to be at 60% completion in August of 2022. A second public meeting is anticipated to be held in September of 2022. Final plans and documents are anticipated to be completed in August of 2023. And finally, the advertisement for the construction phase is anticipated in September of 2023. We encourage your input and feedback about this project. If you are participating online, you may submit written comments in the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can also contact the project manager, Ben Money, directly by email at ben.money@tampagov.net or by U.S. mail at 306 East Jackson Street, 6E, Tampa, Florida, 33602. You may also call the project manager at 813-274-8514 to provide verbal comments during normal business hours after the public meeting. This contact information is also available on the public meeting notification that you may have received by mail. Thank you for attending this virtual public meeting. We'll now answer any questions you may have provided. Please feel free to continue to ask any questions in the question box to the left of your screen.
Good evening. Our first question comes from Amanda Maynard. Her question is, besides reducing the lanes to 2 lanes instead of 4, what other speed calming mechanisms could be used so that we don't have to reduce El Prado 2 lanes?
Kelly, you want to start it off, or?
Well, sure. We had a slide in there. I know this question was asked before the slide was shown, but we are looking at other traffic calming measures such as raised crosswalks, the RFBs themselves. But generally speaking, the biggest traffic calming measure that we're going to have is the road diet. That's what's going to control speeds the most. Anytime you add a lane, traffic speeds go up, especially when a roadway has excess capacity to volume. So when there's more room for cars to maneuver and passing lanes, that's generally where you see the speeding. So there are other methods that we can use. The raised crosswalks, if you want to look for an example of that. We just installed one on Davis Islands, hitting out of the island on Davis Boulevard, and we have a few on Harbor Island on Knights Run and Beneficial Drive. There's a series of 4 there. And those raised crosswalks actually work really well for speed control. We kind of modified the typical standard to help out with speed control a little bit. So that's a good example. We're also looking at possible raised intersections too.
Okay, our next question comes from Stephen Simmons. Why was El Prado chosen rather than Euclid, which is wider than El Prado and only currently has 1 lane of traffic in each direction?
So Euclid we actually did several years ago. El Prado right now is actually under our collector road maintenance program as well. So the resurfacing was due. So when we have a road coming up for resurfacing, we look to see what other changes we can make to the roadway to make it safer and operate better. When we did Euclid, it was probably, I wasn't here, but it was probably around 2012, 2014, sometime in that time period. Actually, probably, now that I think about it, it's probably before that. But that roadway was the first one, I think, in the state of Florida that actually had the sharrows applied to it, the little arrows with the bike symbol. A lot of times when we do these projects, especially in the last 20 years, the standards have changed so much that we try to do the thing that is the safest, most current standard that we have out there. So Euclid, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a consideration for the future about what we're doing then, but at this point, we're focusing on El Prado because it's time to do maintenance on this roadway.
Okay, our next question comes from Stephen Simmons again. And why spend $3.75 million on a project where in 3 years there was no bike car accidents?
So the 3.75, the largest chunk, or 1.1 of that, 1.1 million of that is actually for the sidewalks. So the sidewalks on the north side is the largest, or a big chunk of that right there. The remainder of it is the roadway, but the roadway portion there it doesn't matter what we do, whether or not we put 4 lanes, 2 lanes, bike lanes, doesn't matter. The bike lanes, the cost of the bike lanes is negligible because it's just striping and a little bit of permanent features, but that number wouldn't change with or without the bike lanes. It's still going to cost that same amount of money to do the roadway changes there. And then the only other costs we have are like pedestrian features such as enhanced crosswalks, RFBs, and stuff like that, that again wouldn't change whether or not we do bike lanes or not.
Okay, our next question comes from Adam Fernandez. Good evening. Excessive speeding is an ongoing problem on El Prado, especially between West Shore and Manhattan. What efforts will the city take in this project to prevent speeding on El Prado to protect pedestrians and cyclists? Will speed humps or bumps be installed?
So the same, we kind of answered that earlier too, but we are looking at other methods to address speed humps and bumps. We do get that question a lot. We don't install bumps anywhere. Bumps are what you see in parking lots and stuff like that. We did in the past install speed humps with our emergency vehicles. We had some concerns over that over the years. So as a policy, we decided to stop installing those on collector roadways. So the ones that are there, like on a Zeal, we are going to continue to maintain those. But now we are actually looking for other methods. And in fact, I mentioned the raised crosswalks on Harbor Island. That roadway, or those two roadways, actually did have speed humps, and we actually went ahead and replace those speed humps with raised crosswalks, because you get an added benefit of having more pedestrian access too. And like I said before, the standard raised crosswalk that is basically industry standard that you kind of see around town, we actually took and modified that to be a little bit more drastic, so that when you go up, it's a little bit more of a rise and a shorter run, so that they're actually, that's one right there on the screen. So there's actually more of a dramatic uplift. So they do operate really, really well for speed control. So that is one option that we could do instead of a speed hump.
Okay, our next comment is from Tim Northcutt. Why are we spending $3.75 million to accommodate 23 bicycles in a 12-hour period at a cost of $163,043.48 per bicyclist?
Okay, so we're not. We're spending that money on resurfacing the roadway. So it's for everybody who uses the corridor, including drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. We're also spending that money on adding sidewalks and crosswalks. So it's not really 23 bicycles and the cost shouldn't be divided amongst 23 bicycles. It should be divided amongst all users. In addition, the roadway will operate in the future with the one lane at the acceptable levels of service, all ABs, 1C at the intersection of Dale Mabry. So there really is not a big operational change here, and it's all well above limits set as our standard minimum acceptable limit. So basically, right now, we have a roadway that is built for a lot more vehicles. The 4-lane roadway is not needed for the 9,000 to 4,000 vehicles that you have. And a road diet, even in that stretch there, for the FHWA actually doesn't even recommend, or doesn't even say that you really need to do a traffic study. They basically say, for that level of traffic volume that you experience on that roadway, yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and remove the lane. You're not going to cause a significant delay in traffic. So we actually did the traffic study, and we did analyze that just to see, to make sure we weren't going to be causing any issues there. But on a roadway, the vast majority of the congestion that you're going to experience is at intersections, signalized intersections. That's true of any roadway that's in. There's one way to look at road diets, and one of the industry terms that you often see is wide nose, narrow links. So the wide nodes are the intersections, and you want to keep those with turn lanes and things that actually improve the efficiency of the intersection. But in between the intersections, it really doesn't matter if you have 4 lanes or 2 lanes, because it's going to still carry the same amount of vehicles. You're basically racing to the next intersection, and you're going to have a much better roadway that is safer and can also accommodate other modes, such as cyclists who take, if they choose to commute, that takes a car off the road, so it actually reduces traffic, and a lot safer roadway also for pedestrians too. So this project, like I said, the money, we could put back exactly what's there today. It will still cost the same amount of money as it would with the bike lanes.
Okay, our next question comes from Tim Northcutt. There are 6 major thoroughfares east to west in South Tampa. 3 of them will be impacted dramatically by this project due to traffic flow on Euclid, El Prado, and Bay to Bay. The El Prado project is the only project that will have a bicycle lane each way. Why can't they paint white arrows and bicycles and still allow auto traffic on those lanes?
Because frankly, it's not needed for auto traffic. We have excess capacity, and a share lane is not nearly as safe as a bike lane. So that's the main reason. The other reason is with 4 lanes of traffic, you're not going to get the traffic calming benefits that you would with 2 lanes of traffic. Just flat out. You're still going to experience the speeding, which I think we were recording around 43 miles per hour as a 85 percentile speed. So it's still there. It's going to be up there. And unless we take the lane, you're not going to really see that traffic calming benefit that you would see with 2 lanes or 1 lane in each direction.
Cal, and also the slide that we had during the presentation shows that there's not the amount of traffic on El Prado to occupy a 4-lane divided highway such as El Prado. So the vehicles that were counted is 4,200 to 9,000, an annual average daily traffic, and that is going to be accommodated with just 1 lane in each direction.
Okay, our next question comes from Christine Acosta. What is the desired speed for a completed El Prado complete street?
So as a collector road, our speed limit is 30 miles per hour. We have done 25 in some locations in the past where we changed collector roads to 25, but right now we're anticipating this to be a 30 mile per hour design roadway, posted roadway. So if that's something that is, we can talk to the public, if there's a big push for 25, that's something that we can consider, but our desired speed and our design speed right now is 30 miles per hour.
Okay, our next question comes from Stephen Simmons. Will residents on El Prado be able to have their guests and service providers park on the street in front of their homes?
No, that's a bike lane is a vehicle lane. Bikes are vehicles per state statute, so it would be treated just like a vehicle lane. So the guests wouldn't be able to park there. They have the deliveries and stuff like that. They kind of put their flashers on, or landscapers that will put out cones and park their vehicles there temporarily. I'm sure that happens on El Prado right now already. That will probably still continue to happen because that's a temporary use, but it's the state law is the same that it would be for any vehicle lane. You're not supposed to be parking in it.
Okay, our next question comes from Christine Acosta. Will the city work with waste management and U.S. postal workers to train drivers how to interact with the bike lane?
That's a good question. I never actually thought about that. That is something that I'll have to turn over to our possibly maybe our Vision Zero coordinator to see what she would say on that. We, as far as this project, it wouldn't be part of like our consultant scope or anything like that, but that is something that we should consider to make sure that everybody is operating in the roadway as safe as possible.
Our next question comes from Greg Snar. Some areas on the north side have small hills or mounds. What will you do to create a leveled sidewalk? What will you do about the sprinkler systems that will be displaced by the building of the sidewalks?
Chris or Bruno, do you want to talk on that one?
Commercial district, is that in the commercial district?
No, I think it's just generally in front of some of the homes. They have they have some, their lots are built up a little bit towards their home.
Okay, so we're not taking any right of way. We're not acquiring any right of way on this project. So if the sprinkler systems are currently on private property, we're not going to impact them. The sidewalk that we're adding in to the gaps that are currently there, plus the sidewalk on the north side, are all going to be within the city's right of way.
Yeah, and I can add, we've done projects where we had a change in elevation, and generally we regrade the grass up and then resod the area that we disturb. Or sometimes if there's a large change in elevation, you could either do like a back of sidewalk curb where there's a curb on the back side of the sidewalk to keep that area level, or if it's really bad, it would be like a gravity wall situation where there's a little wall that kind of keeps the land there. The one thing I will say on our right-of-way, this is one of the few roads in the city of Tampa where we actually have right-of-way. Our right-of-ways are generally like 60 feet, and I think we have 120 here, so it's like double the normal right-of-way that we usually have. We're not planning to go back all the way to the back of the right-of-way. So we're not trying to get the sidewalk all the way on the back there. We're trying to get the sidewalk where it makes sense. So I know some of the newer homes have their sidewalk all the way at their property line at the back of right-of-way. And we're actually trying to, we want to go kind of where it already makes sense. And if you kind of stand on the north side of the road and you look down where the walking path is, I'm sure there's some, you can kind of tell where it would be self-evident. We're also going to do what we can to avoid anything where we might have to do utility relocations and stuff like that. We're not going to try to, we're going to try to build it as simple as possible and as intuitive as possible throughout there. Oh, and the sprinkler systems during construction, generally those are relocated during construction. So if you do have some sprinkler systems that go out into the front, those are just either capped in place or relocated. It's not very hard to actually get them underneath the concrete form.
Yeah, and if that happens, Cal, we would be coordinating with those property owners anyway.
Right.
So we wouldn't be doing anything without notifying the particular property owners that there's a sprinkler system that is being impacted. We'll let you know.
Our next question comes from Daniel Dixon. Just to confirm, the volume east of Del Mabry is half the volume of the west side, right?
Let me look at the chart. I think it's Del Mabry to Manhattan is the 9,000, and then, or Manhattan to Del Mabry, and then east of Del Mabry, I believe, is 42. Is that correct, Bruno? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, he's got it on the screen.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at my screen. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it's basically Del Mabry is kind of the split, and then Del Mabry to McDill is 56, and then Omar Manhattan is 42.
Our next question comes from Lydia Anderson. Have you considered that the traffic will redirect to side streets such as Kensington Avenue to the south? What are they planning to keep these neighborhoods and families safe from speeding / increased traffic flow?
So as we said before, the one lane in each direction is more than enough to move the volume of traffic that actually is on the road today. So we don't anticipate any neighborhood cut through traffic with this project. Generally, what those people are racing away from are the intersections. They're trying to bypass an intersection, and they're trying to go around an intersection and then get through it that way. At those intersection locations, we're not really changing what you see on the roadway right now. Those intersections, those turn lanes and everything are still going to be there. So we're not taking out a turn lane or anything like that. We're actually looking to keep those the same. So if you're not experiencing it now, you're not going to experience it after this project.
The next question comes from Peter Lopatin. You have mentioned the project would improve health. However, you have not stated specifically how. I ran the uniform data system from the Health Resources and Service Administration data, which maps out the healthcare professional shortage areas for the medically underserved. in which our dental office, Reuben Dental Aids. We provided for them a dental home. They already have difficulty locating it as it is. Is there any research on the effects on medically underserved getting transportation to and from the office?
Well, first part of that question, the improved health comes with allowing other modes, alternative modes, giving people a safer place to walk and bike, and allowing them to, basically making the roadway safer, and then giving them options to not go by car and to get out and walk and bike and things like that. As far as access to a specific location, we're not removing access, so I wouldn't see how this project would in any way affect access. If anything, I mean, I don't see how access still remains for every single business and everything like that. The only thing that we're doing is increasing access because we're allowing people to get there in different ways. So if people are getting there by transit, they have safer sidewalks to walk on, and we'll be able to access businesses by sidewalk. If they are getting there, they can use bike lanes to take different modes, micromobility lanes, we should call them, to use different modes in case they want to try to get there a different way. So this project does not remove access in any way. If anything, it increases it.
Next question comes from Kristen McMillian. Very excited for this project. How long is construction anticipated to last? Will they start from McDale and move west with the project, or vice versa?
I'll let the consultants talk on the time. They generally, we don't get into how they phase construction. Construction is determined by the contractor, so that's a whole different phase. But I don't know if we've done a construction duration estimate, but I'll ask the consultants if we've done that yet.
No, we haven't done one yet. But a project like this would be, I would anticipate that the contractor would phase it out, possibly by blocks, to minimize an impact to the traveling public. As far as the duration, I'm thinking that it would be less than a year long. Would be the duration of the construction activities.
Yeah, and I will add the sidewalk portion won't change anything on vehicular access or anything like that. Like, you still have the roadway to ride on. And then generally this is going to be, there might be areas of reconstruction, but this is generally going to be a mill and resurface, which is not a really burdensome road closure. It's not, they don't have to like close the entire road for the most part. They probably just go ahead and do a milling operation, and it's like more mobile. They'll close a lane at a time, and then once they mill it, they usually allow traffic onto it. So there's different means and methods that we don't know because the contractor isn't on board, but I don't expect this to be a huge burden to traffic.
Next question comes from Gabriel Gonzalez Jr. Hello, are there currently any construction funding plans in place for these enhancements?
Yes, we have $1.1 million in federal grants with the Transportation Alternatives Program that it's administered through the FDOT. And the remainder will likely be gas tax or multimodal fees. So, or a combination of the two. So this one is programmed and will be funded in fiscal year 24.
Next question comes from Christine Acosta. What other bike facilities will El Prado bike lanes connect with? Are there plans to create bike boxes or other treatments to ease left turns out of the bike lane, such as at Church Street?
We haven't gotten into design specifics yet on that, but yes, I would imagine that we're going to be looking at intersection treatments for all of our intersections. As far as the bike facilities that they have, the ones that that are known, like Bayshore Boulevard, we have plans to put an RRFB and the yellow flashing lights. Put one of those at the end of El Prado, so there will be a crosswalk there. And in addition to that, besides the ones that we already have, one of the initiatives the city is considering right now is the neighborhood greenways, our bike boulevard program, where we can actually look at a map and designate streets as bike boulevards, add some safety and traffic calming elements to them, and then try to designate routes for cyclists to use as alternatives to some of our more congested vehicle heavy roadways such as Dale Mabry. So in all, what I would say to that is we have some bike rides that are already existing. We need to do a better job of promoting them and kind of letting people know where the safe routes are. But that is something that we're kind of continuously looking at as well.
Next question comes from Carol Ann Bennett. What are the plans for the intersections?
Like I said, we don't have design details, but Bruno or Chris, do y'all want to kind of elaborate on any of the intersection treatments?
So I'll talk about the Dale Mabry intersection because that one currently has an opportunity for a right turn lane. On that one, if you're going east on El Prado, what we will do is we will move that bike lane in between the right turn lane and the through lane, so that the bicyclist still has a safe access to cross Dale Mabry. The other intersections, again, we haven't identified how we want to address the right turning vehicles crossing the bike lanes or the bicyclist making left turns crossing the vehicle lane. So we're still looking into that. But Dale Mabry is a situation where we would be able to put the bicyclist in between the right turn lane and the through.
You know, one other thing that we've also looked at is drainage improvements. So there are some intersections that have ponding. So we'll evaluate those intersections as well to make sure that we can incorporate some enhancements to the flow of stormwater leaving the roadway. So we don't want to leave ponding on the roadway, but those will be done on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and we've mentioned crosswalks and stuff like that. So you might have some intersection treatments that deal with that. And then we did mention the Drexel crossing. It's a really skewed intersection that has could be tightened up a little bit. So that's another thing that we're looking at intersections.
Okay, next question comes from Tim Northcutt. How is it safer for cyclists when homeowners will be backing out of their driveways into the bike's path?
That's what they do now. Right now the cyclist path is the outside lane. So it's the same thing. They're operating under the same condition now because cyclists have a right by law to ride in the lane. So there's still going to be, it's the same movement. It's just designating space for cycle only and not for vehicle traffic. So there's a point to be made on the left side treatment that you have fewer conflicts with driveways, but there's pros and cons to both the left side and right side bike lane. But yeah, I mean, right now it's the same exact way. I mean, for that matter, it's same as it is on the sidewalks. The drivers are backing up onto sidewalks, and that's cyclists can ride on the sidewalks, pedestrians can walk on the sidewalks, or vehicles. Drivers going to be backing into a vehicle lane that's a hazard for vehicles. So it's really, people have to start thinking of modes of transportation as different modes and stop viewing everything as car, bike, everything are individual, like unrelated things. They're all modes of transportation, and that's what a complete street is.
Next question comes from Jake Armstrong. Will the speed limit also be lowered to 25 miles per hour on the boulevard?
Again, sometimes these questions come in, you don't get to see the questions ahead of time. So we answered that, but right now we're at 30 miles per hour. We have done 25 in some areas where it's a significant residential area, where we've lowered our speed to 25. Generally, those 25-mile-per-hour roads are classified as something called a neighborhood collector and not a collector roadway. As this is a collector roadway, we tend to keep those at 30 miles per hour. However, that's a comment that I will take to our planning team to see what can be done there. But if that's something that's important to y'all, I would. This is a good time to bring it up. So if it's something that you're in favor in, let us know. But our plan right now is to post the whole corridor at 30 miles per hour.
Next question comes from Maddie Rockham. Have you considered the Roosevelt Elementary car line in your design?
So Chris or Bruno, do y'all want to touch on that?
Yeah, so we received that comment early on. The car line apparently backs up onto El Prado and creates a delay. So we have not actually looked into the design yet. We've also, along the same lines, we have identified the Trinity Church and School as another location where traffic backs up onto El Prado and actually backs up around the corner onto Del Mabry, northbound Del Mabry to eastbound El Prado. So both of those locations will be looked at as far as what to do, because obviously if we occupy a portion of the street with a bike lane and the vehicles are backing up onto the one lane that we have, this now becomes an issue. So we recognize that. We will look into it as part of our design.
Okay, and I would add, we recently did a concept design for Tampa Palms Boulevard up in the new Tampa area, and they have the same issue where we're looking at doing a car pickup line, school pickup line, almost like a car pickup lane that is a bike lane, but also the vehicles could access for in times of car pickup. So that might be something we can look at too. But generally speaking, we on those kind of temporary uses, we have a little bit of leeway there with what we can design. We just want to make something that's safer for the other, 22 hours a day where they aren't going to be used for pickup and drop off. But yeah, that's definitely a consideration to look at and something we need to consider during our design.
Mm-hmm.
Next question comes from Wyatt Howard. Was consideration given for the increased traffic for Roosevelt Elementary and Academy of the Holy Names with reduced lanes?
Y'all were right on top of each other. Yeah, same answer as we had for the last question, but looking at doing something to accommodate that traffic queue.
Next question comes from Bob Nathan. How many pedestrians have died in the past 5 years?
I don't believe any on El Prado. There was, I know, several on Bayshore a couple years ago. I mean, we have pedestrian deaths, unfortunately, throughout the city, but the real impetus of this is not to count pedestrian deaths. It's actually to not count them to where there's zero. So our position at the city, what we're trying to do is get to zero traffic fatalities with our Vision Zero goals. We don't believe in waiting for an accident to happen or a crash to happen before we actually make a change. We want to make our roadways operate safely at all times. Speeding and enforcement of speeding cannot be done 24 hours a day. We need to do something better through design. So that's one of the big things that we're trying to do with this project, is to make our roadways safer for pedestrians and all of our vulnerable road users, such as cyclists and pedestrians.
All right, our next question comes from Michael Bruns. How far back should we set our fence if we live on the north side of El Prado to accommodate the new sidewalks?
Well, you set your fence at your property line. That one, They may, so y'all might have some encroachments into the right of way. I don't know if that's true or not, but definitely don't go outside your property line. Set your fence at your property line. That's my official answer. If there are encroachments, like I said, we're not going all the way to the right of way with our sidewalk, so it's not, you know, if it's a code enforcement issue, that's something else. I'm not going to get involved with that, but definitely if you're going to build a new fence, keep it within your property and not in the right of way.
And I'll add to that, if you're going to put landscape or trees, consider doing the same thing that Cal is talking about. Stay within your property. Don't get too close to the curb line with your landscape and trees.
Yeah, it's a good point, because if we need to, we might have to remove some landscaping if it's in the path of the proposed sidewalk. But like I said, we're going to try to, we don't want to remove big trees or anything like that. We're not trying to remove trees. We consider them a transportation asset. They lead to safer and more usable streets. So that's not what we're intending to do. But yeah, maybe hold off on planting any big trees right in the right of way for right now.
Our next question comes for Peter Lopatin. How about the schools that are along El Prado, which include Academy of the Holy Names, whose parents are picking up their children and blocking a lane of traffic? Now you want to implement a bike lane. And what about the lawn maintenance / landscaping companies that use one due to the lack of trailer accessible driveways? So how exactly are you helping anything?
We kind of addressed the school lane on the landscaping when we addressed that as well. But I will add this on the landscaping. Right now, if they're parking in the road, aren't we blocking a vehicle lane? So how is that any different than what we're doing with a bike lane? It's the same exact thing. If they're parking in the roadway right now, they're blocking a lane of travel, and I bet those cars still move. So it's the same exact thing that we're looking at. It's just a different mode. So I wouldn't really be too concerned about that. Temporary use, like I said, it's not, you can't park there for like as a parked vehicle, but temporary use, if they put cones and everything, it's just like they would in any other state as a maintenance traffic mode or maintenance to traffic phase.
And that's why the bike lane on the outside, the right side, makes more sense, because the temporary blocking of that side of the roadway by the lawn service and various other vehicles is blocking the bike lane, not the through lane, not the travel.
Next question comes from Tim Northcutt. What happens to traffic flow when garbage and recycle trucks have to use the auto lane? There will be no capacity to pass.
So we actually put that in our presentation. If it's in that's one of the big concerns with the left side bike lane is that the let's see which one we on. We're actually showing okay, so on the left side here, you can see where there's a garbage collection vehicle and it's stalled in the right-hand lane, and then people would have to actually merge into the bike lane, which is unsafe. And that's one of our big concerns with the bike lane on the left side. Whereas if you go to the next slide, the collection vehicles actually pull into the bike lane and then collect the garbage, and then the vehicles are still in their lane, so a cyclist would actually take the lane at that point, or they have the option of going up onto the sidewalk to get around to the garbage vehicle. So that's one of the big benefits of the right side. It kind of gives cyclists a couple options. They can either take the lane and operate as a vehicle, or I should say operate in the vehicular lane, or they can go up one of the curb cuts or driveway or curb ramps and actually go up onto the sidewalk.
And to add to that, Cal, I think the question might also be concerned with perhaps the trash vehicle being on the travel lane, zigzagging in and out. What I imagine is going to happen is that the trash truck will probably travel down the bike lane because they're going to be picking up trash. They're not going to be on the travel lane blocking that one travel lane that you have for the vehicles. That trash truck is going to occupy the bike lane and go from resident to resident. They're not going to be going in and out of the travel lane. Likewise with the mail service, they're going to probably end up staying on the bike lane, and the bicyclist will be able to get around. It's not going to be a big deal for the bicyclist. They'll see the trash truck, they'll get around. That's it. And the trash truck or the mail service will just continue on that bike lane.
Yeah, you kind of, that's one, I think that's the next question that we have is the mail trucks.
Yes, our next question is from Michelle Codon. How will the mail be delivered with the mail truck blocking the bike lane daily?
As Bruno just said, same thing. Generally, they're probably just stay in that lane into the bike lane. And as I brought up before, again, this is a vehicular lane, so it's the same logic that I used before about saying, you know, this is still a like landscaping companies were probably using that outside lane and doing cutting grass and everything. Same thing here. They're probably going to use the bike lane. So it's going to be something that is only temporary. It's only for, you know, random uses throughout the day. It's not something that's going to be there at all times. So cyclists will just have to go around either side. They'll either go up to the sidewalk or through the vehicular lane.
Next question comes from Ashley Phillips. Will the bike lanes have any type of safety barriers to prevent cars from approaching?
We're looking, we've actually considered several things on that, especially we want to keep the ability to do, if the bike lane's on the outside, we want to keep the ability to actually have solid waste vehicles, mail deliveries and stuff like that to utilize the bike lane. So we probably wouldn't be putting anything hardscape there. However, where the most important areas where we have to try to find protection is at intersections. So we will be looking at doing physical protection at intersections. That's where a lot of the bike crashes happen. So we want to try to focus our resources and focus our attention on those areas while maintaining a road that works for everybody.
I'll also give Cal credit on coming up with the design of an 8-foot buffered bike lane. The DOT, the FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, utilizes a 7-foot buffered bike lane, and the double white stripe is pretty closely spaced. In talking with Cal and the team, we've devised a typical that is shown here on the screen, where that white stripe is pretty far apart. So while it may not have a physical delineator or raised markers, it's a double white stripe that's about 2 feet apart. It gives a sense of separation. So that's also a benefit.
Yeah, and that 3-foot space actually works well for if we put something as a physical separator, we still have a 5-foot bike lane at intersections.
All right, next question comes from Millie Fielder. If the ADVT is approximately 10,000 vehicles, why would you want to reduce the lane capacity?
So the 10,000 vehicles, that's that average annual, that's vehicles per day, right? Average annual daily traffic. That's not a lot in terms of how many vehicles a road can handle at one time. So it's well within the threshold to do 1 lane of traffic, and 1 lane of traffic will actually carry the capacity to handle that amount of volume. So you don't, if you look at the slide now, you really don't start into getting into looking at traffic studies really into the 10,000 to 15,000 range. but it's still generally considered a good range. To put traffic volumes in terms that, because I know that it's kind of hard to understand, a few road divided sections that we had, Palm Avenue and Ybor, right by the YMCA and going off into Ybor. That's 14,000 vehicle AADT. Nebraska Avenue, which was road dieted, was 17 or 18,000. And when they road dieted, they actually, since that time, the traffic has actually increased. So the volume has actually increased, but it hasn't had any backups or anything like that. So there hasn't been a delay because there's enough capacity in the lanes that they have already to handle the amount of traffic here. So with less than 10,000 vehicles, we have more capacity than we need to handle that.
Okay, next question is from Kristen McMullen. Second question, I am a resident of El Prado. Although I am very excited for the project, I am hoping you can explain how we should anticipate backing out of our driveways, etc., if the bike lane is on the right.
Okay, so it would be the same thing that you would do if you had a vehicular lane there. However, the one thing that's, once you get into that bike lane, it actually kind of helps a little bit because you're not trying to back into two lanes of traffic. With the vehicular lane there, you always have the possibility that someone's following close to another car, wants to go around them, and then gets really quick into the switches lanes really quick into the right-hand lane right when you're backing out. With this, you don't have that same issue that you would in those situations. So if anything, this would be easier to back out of because it gets you a little bit more space for slower moving traffic there than it would if you were backing out onto a vehicular lane.
All right, next question comes from Greg Snar. How will you address the issues of school car lanes that spill out onto El Prado?
We address that. We'll look at options during our design.
Yeah, we recognize that with only having one travel lane, if that lane spills onto El Prado, then that creates a congestion point. So we're going to be looking at that.
All right, next question comes from Simone Sanfilippo. How safe will this make bicycle safety for our citizens under 18? Would you let your child ride a bike on Euclid or Beta Bay mixed in with cars?
Yeah, this question and the next question kind of go hand in hand, but I will put, there's a saying, everybody should have the option or bike lanes that work for people from 8 to 80. That's not necessarily what we're trying to do here. It's not a bike lane that works for somebody from 8 to 80. What it is we have options that work for somebody from 8 to 80. So would I let my child ride a bike on Euclid or Beta Bay? No, I personally, I would not ride a bike on Beta Bay. And Euclid, I would, but it depends on the time of day, to be honest. So we're trying to make a bike lane that would be safer. This bike lane is a much better design than what you have on Euclid right now. It's not a shared lane. It's its own individual space with protection at intersections where we can have different markings to kind of designate the bike area, make it really obvious that it's not a vehicular lane, but a bike lane. We're also looking at doing traffic calming with both the road diet and other measures so that vehicles travel at a safer speed so that the vehicles aren't traveling at 45 miles per hour right next to the bike lane. So there's a lot of things that we're doing here that would make this a lot safer than what is currently on Beta Bay or Euclid. And if you want to read the next one, the next
let me weigh in. Yeah, let me weigh in. So this is not a recreational path either. Let's be clear on this. This is another mode of transportation, like we described during the presentation. We pointed out that there are several modes of transportation. Some folks drive a car to work, some folks take a bus to work. You know, this is another mode of transportation to get to and from either work or the grocery store or wherever you wish to go. There are also some bicyclists who do this for exercise and have the more expensive bikes and go as a group, and they utilize this pathway for exercising. So I echo what Cal is talking about. Would I let my kid ride on the bike lane? I would probably prefer to have them ride on the sidewalk or a trail. You know, if you're planning on recreational mode, possibly use a trail. So again, it's there for transportation. It's there for a mode of transportation, and it's up to you how you would prefer to use it.
Next question comes from Mike Fanning. Why does this project need to take so long? It seems that these changes could be accomplished much sooner.
Okay, so we actually accidentally skipped the question and said, why a bike lane? From Rusty Carpenter, why a bike lane? I've never seen a bike on El Prado. I just wanted to kind of address that with the previous question. Well, personally, just in the time that we went out there for our one site visit, we saw at least 5 or 6 bicyclists there. So I know I've seen bicyclists on El Prado. The other thing, there is no bike infrastructure there right now. So the idea that someone's just going to go ride on a dangerous road where they don't feel safe is not something that people usually do. So if you build infrastructure for cyclists and that infrastructure gets them somewhere, they do use it. So the more and more of these bike lanes, protected bike lanes, cycle tracks, trails bike boulevards that we build, the more and more our low stress network expands, and we actually give people an alternative to car travel. So that's, I just wanted to address that real quick. And then why does this project need to take so long? So when our projects are programmed through, right now we get about $9 million a year in gas tax. That's the majority of our funding comes from that. So that's our only sustained source of funding. We also have multimodal fees as well. Those are spotty and they're not reliable. You can't really prepare a capital program on that because they come in different years, odd years. They don't have a set schedule. We know we can rely on about $9 million of funding every year. In order to do the majority of our bigger projects like this, we go after state and federal grants. When you go after a state and federal grant, you're automatically 6 years out. So we went after this one, and then we got programmed in 24. We actually got this moved up a bit, but that was the first year. Everything else before the 6th year is already programmed. So you have to apply, and then once you get it, they put you in the 6th year. That's why these projects take forever. But yeah, I know it's frustrating, but fiscal year 2024 technically starts June or July 2023, so it's not that far out. I just don't know what time they're planning on letting it, but yeah, that's generally the reason why it takes so long to get these projects on the ground.
All right, next question comes from Emily Hinsdale. I am concerned about the Concordia/El Prado intersection. How will changing from a signal to a beacon better protect student pedestrians from vehicles turning right or left through the sidewalk?
Well, we're still looking at that too. So that is one of the ideas that we have out there. We're kind of mulling that over internally as well, whether or not we want to do the traffic signal or the pedestrian beacon. The pedestrian beacon would have a little bit more protection. It would have a more physical protection than the traffic signal. However, the other thing is it would actually be more on demand. So there's a few things there, and we can look at how we treat the intersection of Concordia and that intersection to see how that functions as well. So I understand the concern. That is something that we've kind of gone back and forth with internally. Right now, we don't necessarily have a set design for that intersection, but we are looking at both the traffic signal and the pedestrian beacon, or I should say RFB, as a as like competing designs there. So I understand your concern there, and we are kind of considering that.
All right, next question comes from Leonard Wolfson. What is the recommended speed limit for the new road?
30 miles per hour.
Next question comes from Tim Northcutt. Why doesn't Euclid have designated lanes?
So I wasn't here when that one was done, but I believe the reason was that there was parking allowed on Euclid at the time. So you don't have 4 lanes of traffic there. You always had 2 lanes, and the residents did not want to lose the parking that they already had. I believe that's the reason why. The weird thing about that, if you look at those sharrows, they're actually put off to the side. It's a weird application that we did, and that was people kind of not understanding the need, the meaning behind the sharrow, because it was brand new. No one had ever done it before. But that is, from my understanding, that was the reason. But I'm speaking anecdotally. I wasn't here when they actually put those in.
And by the way, this is a perfect time for me to point out that between McDill and Bayshore, there's parking, there's on-street parking, and we already received a question about, would that parking be preserved? And I will say yes, that parking will be preserved, and that's why we're adopting the similar approach to Euclid here with the sharrow lanes and the parking. That way it accommodates all the transportation modes, the vehicles, the bicyclists, and the parking still stays there.
Yeah, and that section is significantly traffic calmed and has a very smaller AATT volume there too. So because of the brick pavers, it has a lot of traffic calming already in place.
All right, next question comes from Bob Nathan. How are you going to handle the eastbound traffic turning north onto McDale at school time, specifically to allow cars going straight to Bayshore that currently get stuck by these turning cars? Would you consider removing the median near that intersection to provide a turn lane?
So no, on this one, we're not looking at operational improvements at that intersection. We have brought that up, the McDill intersection, in the past. We run into some tricky right-of-way issues there for all directions, including McDill too. McDill has a significant backup there as well. But I know the west side of the intersection has significantly more right-of-way than the east side. It does narrow down quite a bit. And in fact, there's some property corners that are like right on the roadway. That's why there's missing sidewalk along McDill and El Prado there. So I understand that is an issue. At this time, we're not planning on doing any turn lane widening with this project. But we do want to look at that intersection, see what we can do at McDill and El Prado, and McDill and Euclid for that matter, to see what changes we can make in the future. So that is something that we're aware of.
Next question comes from Millie Felder. The South Tampa population is steadily increasing. What will prevent El Prado from becoming like West Shore at 5:00 p.m.? Residents will not be able to leave their homes.
So there is some densification happening in the South Tampa area. There is some new development, that, especially around South of Gandy area, Bayshore. There's some new apartment buildings going up. However, it's largely built out in its current state, especially around this area. Regardless, the 1 lane of travel will still accommodate future traffic. You could double it and still maintain that 1 lane of traffic. You can actually over double it in some or triple it in some locations and still maintain that 1 lane of travel. So we're not going to see 2-lane, or we're not going to see a double or tripling of vehicular traffic on that roadway. If we do, you're not going to be able to go anywhere in South Tampa by car. So I think this is something that gets kind of lost in the whole bike lane argument. If you start looking at 2045 projections on our roadways and what they're projected as, just by going, hey, we're going to increase the cars steadily over time at 2%, which is generally what engineers do, right? If you start doing that and assume that that's going to happen, our roadways will move slower than the bike lanes. So people are going to start taking other modes in order to get around that traffic, that fictitious traffic doubling every so often. You know, so there's not that kind of boogeyman argument. It doesn't really work on the El Prado, because we're maintaining that space that can handle more, that has more capacity than what the volume would be anyway.
All right, next question comes from Jordan Eddy. Why would we wait until someone dies before changing the design?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here by not by making a roadway safer, so that we don't have a tragedy like we've had on some of our neighboring roadways like Bayshore. So we're trying to change this roadway with safer design.
Next question comes from Millie Fielder. How is this project encouraging growth by reducing vehicle capacity?
Like I said before, it's the growth that we're experiencing right now. The roadway that we have can accommodate future growth. The roadway that we're proposing, I should say, could accommodate future growth. But looking at alternative modes is also accommodating future growth, because at the end of the day, that's what would be necessary for a large, dense city.
Next question comes from Carol Ann Bennett. When were the traffic studies done that analyzed the traffic volume?
The report was 2018.
2018. Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Yeah, January 2018.
Yeah, January 2018.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Millie Fielder. Has this project been finalized, or are you seriously considering the comments of the residents?
No, we're seriously considering the comments of the residents. We put in a lot of legwork on the front end with the planning studies and stuff that we did, but we're trying to figure out what works for the residents on the corridor. There's a lot of, we can study crashes, we can study volumes, we can study all that stuff. We can tell you where all that stuff is happening, but we need to know what works for residents. And y'all live on the corridor, y'all live around the corridor, y'all know how that corridor operates. For instance, talking about the school pickup and drop-off lanes, that's an important thing to note. And we have to see if there's something that we can accommodate in the design to handle that. We want to learn about the El Prado and Concordia intersection and what your thoughts are there. Where do you want to see crosswalks? Where do you wish you could cross the street? And where is something like when I talked to one resident, they brought up a park that it was not a public park, but many residents around the area used it, and they're like, yeah, there's a ton of people that know if you go here, there's a little private park that has a playground equipment and stuff like that. So they actually brought one of the locations up to us, and I added it to the list of possible crosswalk locations, because he said there's a ton of families that are crossing the road at that location. So we definitely want to hear from y'all, and we definitely want to know what changes you want to see on that roadway.
All right, next question is from Adam Fernandez. Has the city performed any studies on El Prado with regard to average speed?
Yeah, I know we did one in 2016. I don't know if we've done anything since then. The 2016 one I know because it was in the traffic study in 2018. but I can check to see if we have any other more frequent speed studies. But the traffic study that's on the website does actually mention travel speeds, not travel speeds, but speed study and talking about what the average speed was on the corridor.
Next question comes from Maddie Ruckham. Cars in the car lane often block the crosswalk at Concordia, blocking students' access to safe crossing. What could be done to ensure their safety? I'm sorry, what can be done to ensure their safe crossing?
That's something we'll have to look at during design as well. I believe Maddie's talking about the actual crosswalk on Concordia, not the one that crosses the traffic signal. But either way, that is something that we can look at to see if there's any changes that we can make to try to get people to stop outside of the crosswalk there on both approaches, I should say.
Next question comes from Maria Moroto. Why not go ahead and repave? In the 90s, there was work done to control rainwater and my city water bill went up.
So we are repaving. That's part of the project. So we will be repaving the roadway. I'm not sure what happened in the 90s. The rainwater should not be affecting your utility water. They're different systems. So I'm not really sure exactly what the cause of that was.
Next question comes from Lisa Warkop. I live on the north side of El Prado. Will the sidewalk be installed through my yard? If so, I have several trees close to the street.
Yeah, the sidewalk is going to be installed in the right of way. So your yard goes from curb to your house. However, the right of way is like 30 feet off the curb. So there's a good portion of that that's actually public road or public land. The right of way is going to be going through that portion. Now, the trees in the right of way, as I said before, we're not trying to remove trees, but we may have to do some spot removal of trees if we can't find another adjacent way to get around them that's convenient and not really detouring pedestrians too much. But generally, if you kind of look at the picture that's on the screen now, just if you can kind of see where a sidewalk would kind of fit right in there and along the grass between the curb and the trees there.
And as I mentioned before, we're going to be doing our due diligence. If we're putting a sidewalk through a beautiful crepe myrtle or some beautiful tree that you've planted out there, we'll be contacting you ahead of time, letting you know that we have found no alternative but to impact your tree, and we'll give you an opportunity to replant it elsewhere, maybe several feet away from the proposed location of the sidewalk. So we'll be doing that. Likewise with the sprinkler system that I mentioned earlier on, all these impacts, we will be coordinating with you.
All right, our next question comes from Millie Filder. Why not consider reducing the width of the medians opposed to using existing yard space?
Well, there's several reasons. One, I'll go in like kind of order of feasibility there, but one, the medians currently have those oak trees. We're trying not to affect the oak trees that are in the median. But the real reason is because that would be an exponentially more expensive project to actually move curb and drainage structures off the edge of the roadway in is, I mean, orders of magnitude larger than just using the public space that's already available for sidewalk.
Next question comes from Amanda Maynard. What is the solution for the lanes blocked by car lanes twice a day going east and west on El Prado between Himes and McDill?
We've already answered that. We're going to try to look for options during design to accommodate the car lines.
Next question comes from Billy Filder. If the impacted residents don't prefer the project, why construct it? Who gains from it?
I don't think that that's a true statement. We've gotten lots of community support for this project, and we're not impacting personal property. So the residents, if you're talking about personal property, we're not impacting that. But we've actually gotten a lot of support for this project, including from residents along the El Prado Boulevard.
Next question comes from Justin Luby. If you are looking at raised crosswalks, will you add additional crosswalks? There are very few crosswalks outside of the major intersections. Would there be new crosswalks in between?
Yes, that's what we're looking at right now. We want to provide more frequent and convenient crosswalks, safe crosswalks at frequent and convenient locations so that you don't have to walk to the nearest intersection, signalized intersection to cross the street at a crosswalk. We want to sign them, provide speed controls for them, and enhance them with like RFBs and things like that, so that they're a safe, convenient place to cross. But right now, if you look at the chart on the right, those are ones that we've already kind of heard from members of the public, or are kind of evident because of locations next to near schools, or possibly just because they're in between signalized intersections, or they already have a higher pedestrian volume. So those are ones that we're looking at right now. However, if you know of other ones, other locations that you want us to consider, please let us know, and we can do that during design.
All right, next question comes from Stefan Sesums. In your presentation, you did not discuss Bay Shore to El Prado. Does this mean that the section will remain unchanged?
Bay Shore.
I think he means Bay Shore to McDill, maybe. Oh wait, no, I don't know. I'm not. Bay Shore to El Prado. I'm not really sure what he means by that. Let me talk about the two ends of the project, because I think I can. If he's talking about the area between McDill and Bay Shore, we're not really doing much there. It's we're looking at adding a crossing mid-block and adding the striped the sharrows on that area. And then if we're talking about West Shore, after like the Omar area, there's a section west of Omar that's not within the project limits. And in fact, there's really not going to be much changes from Omar to West Shore either. That area is, when you do a federal project, you have to put if you want to include the intersection of West Shore, you have to go one block to the west. It's just how they name everything. So I believe that's what he was getting at.
All right, next question is from Maria Moroto. Why would you think there will not be any issues when you're taking away 2 lanes of traffic? What about the people who own RVs and don't have enough room to turn into their properties?
So on the RV front, we are not taking away physical space. So the curb lines will stay the same. So there's still the opportunity to kind of make wider turns and stuff like that. Just do it safely like you would if there was a vehicular lane next to you instead of a bike lane. The other thing on the RVs, the inside shoulder, there's a 2-foot inside shoulder. If you look at the typical section here, that 2-foot inside shoulder is, we kind of did that because if you look at the medians there, those oak trees have already started busting up that asphalt that's right on the edge of the pavement there. And as they grow, they're going to do the same thing. So even after we mill and resurface, that is going to have issues with the pavement, tree roots trying to upheave the pavement and the curb there. So when we're looking at this, we didn't want to take everything and put it towards the outside. That 2 feet of shoulder will eventually have the same root intrusion problems, but it does provide a temporary space in case anybody has a wider wheel axle, or like, RV, for instance, or a boat trailer, anything like that. So you still have space there to kind of use if need be.
Let me add a couple things to that. So the reason we're not cutting the roots of those oak trees in the median to remove the problem of busting up that concrete curbing is we have spoken with our arborist, and he indicated that that would potentially damage the tree. So if we were to cut those roots, we potentially could lose the tree. So that's why we've come up with the idea of having this offset to mitigate that issue. With regards to the RV, this design will actually help you because now you're not going to be competing with a vehicle on the outside lane as you're trying to maneuver your RV into your driveway. So you're going to be all the way close to the median, and you're going to make a right turn into your driveway, and you're going to have no cars in that right lane hindering your movement into your driveway. You'll have the whole bike lane to yourself to be able to get through into your driveway.
All right, next question comes from Millie Filter. The speaker says the road is overbuilt, 4 lanes as opposed to 2. Why tamper with that by reducing the capacity because gross isn't embeddable?
It's not to be rude, but we're getting the same question over and over again. So I just refer y'all back to the answer that we previously provided.
Next question is from Michelle Codon. Was the traffic study done during COVID years or pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, 2018, and during school time.
Next question comes from Maria Moroto. Why not just add the sidewalk?
Because it doesn't solve all the issues that we're trying to solve. It doesn't provide the traffic calming that we're trying to provide. It doesn't provide bike access like we're trying to provide. It doesn't make the roadway safer like the road guide does. So there's a lot of reasons why we would not just do the sidewalk project.
Next question is from Joseph Fox. Why downgrade?
It's the same. That's the same question. Sorry, I just want to make sure that we get to all the questions. So it's the same question that we got with the capacity on the 4-lane section to the 2-lane section.
Next question is from Tim Northcutt. My home is on the south side of El Prado, and when driving east, I have to make a U-turn in order to access my driveway. That U-turn will force me into the proposed bike lane. How is that safe?
So currently the U-turn would force you into 2 travel lanes, which puts you into 2 conflict points with vehicular crashes. So you'd be running into 2 potential vehicular crashes there, whereas you would only be running into 1 potential vehicular crash by 1 lane. Additionally, the outside lane, yeah, there you go. That's the slide that I was talking about. The outside lane is already a bike lane. There's already a bike lane there. It's just not designated as a bike lane. So there's still, people can still be riding in that outside lane right now today. So it's not anything different than what we're talking about there in terms of having bikes on the road.
Next question comes from Daniel Dixon. What happens between now and August? Can you start yesterday?
Same thing. We're just doing the design and everything, but we will keep everybody up to date on the progress of the design. We have a great website right now called, if you go to the website and go under residents and capital projects, and there's a map that kind of shows all the capital projects within the city, including water, wastewater, stormwater. The other thing that we wanted to let y'all know is that we will be doing a secondary public meeting after a 60% design, so that we can go out there and kind of show y'all what we found from the comments that we had.
Yeah, and to add, what happens between now and August, we have just received survey. We have to send out the survey crew to give us information. Like Chris mentioned, we're also improving drainage. So we're evaluating the profile of the roadway. We're evaluating some minor drainage improvements. So these things take some bit of time to analyze.
Next question is from Jordan Eddy. Is there an ability to make the bike lane a protected bike lane?
We've kind of looked at both. Protected means what he's getting at is physical protection, either with delineators or separator. So we have looked at that, and we are going to look at that, especially around intersections, see if we can get protection, because a lot of the crashes that you see with bike crashes are at intersections with turning vehicles. So we are looking at different methods to mitigate against that. However, seeing as how many residences and curb cuts they have along that street, because it's all single family homes, so they each have their own driveway, they each have their own mailbox, where we can't really put a hard physical protection along the entire roadway without affecting capacity on the road. So we are still going to be looking at areas where we can add some where it makes sense. And also the commercial district area, we're looking at adding parking protected bike lanes there. So we are looking at certain areas where that will work, but we can't, right now it's kind of it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. As we design the corridor, we're going to have to find places where we can actually fit that.
In addition to that, Cal, so in addition to the numerous driveways, you've got another couple of items. We've got the delivery trucks and the trash trucks and the mail folks coming and going. We can't trap them in that bike lane. We've got to be able to give them in and out access. Also, emergency vehicles. Emergency vehicles require 20 feet of curb to curb space. So we can't block them as well from getting to your homes with emergency fire trucks and ambulance and those folks. So we've got to accommodate them. But like Carl said, we're going to create some delineators of sorts near the pinch points, the intersections.
Next question comes from Timothy Smith. When I look at Clark and Euclid, these projects have definitely not reduced speed. What can be done this time to ensure that speeds are in fact reduced?
Yeah, Euclid, I'm aware of the changes on Clark and Euclid. So Euclid, I agree with you. One of the problems with the Euclid project is, well, I shouldn't say I agree with you. I don't honestly know if they've reduced speed or not at all. But one of the problems with that Euclid project is that those lanes, when traffic isn't bad, let's say in the 2 hours a day or the 22 hours a day where, or whatever, 21 hours a day where you don't have peak traffic going through that roadway, you have and you don't have parking on the side of the road. You basically have a 17-foot, 18-foot wide, uninhibited paved space that cars feel kind of empowered to speed on. So you have a lot more space there. And when you have those with the absence of bike lane and parking, it's really hard to enforce. That design does not enforce lower speeds. Okay, so for the El Prado project, the road diet in itself is one of the traffic calming things, but we are looking at other measures such as raised crosswalks and stuff like that to really enforce the speed through good design, and not through actual law enforcement. So it's one of those things. It's as we get through it, if you like, I really urge you, if you can go out to Davis Boulevard, that project's wrapping up. Harbor Island's a great example of something that we've done recently that has had speed controls through it. Cass Street in the West Tampa area has a two-way cycle track on one side that's separated in parking on both sides of the road. Those are all recent examples of projects where we limited lane size and or did road diets that really have changed the characteristics of that roadway. Palm Avenue, for example, is another one. So we're really trying to do things through better design.
Next question comes from Timothy Smith. Can we expect that you will dig up our yards along the north side of El Prado to install a sidewalk when there is an 11-foot lane that could be used instead?
Yeah, I mean, the sidewalk, we need to have sidewalk, multimodal access. We should have that on all of our collector roads. So regardless of this lane, if we weren't repurposing the lane for a bike lane, which is still important, we would still be doing the sidewalk outside the curb limits.
Next question comes from Nicole Lee. How will the city address the possible one-lane long car lines and congestion on El Prado at Concordia for Roosevelt Elementary and Del Mabry by Holy Trinity School during pickup and drop-off?
Yeah, that's another school thing. We're going to work through the school pickup and drop off during design and see if there's any way we can accommodate something like a shared lane or something like that. So the school questions, I don't want to kind of keep on answering that because I know there's other people that want to get their questions answered.
Next question is from Timothy Smith. Do you consider that a dramatic approach angle to raised crosswalks will create significantly more road noise? Cars slow to overtake the raised crosswalks, then accelerate once they clear the raised crosswalk. Is there a consideration in a residential area? We've seen this in the areas in Harbor Island and on Davis Island that you've talked about.
So the road noise that you're talking about, you see that a lot on Azeel, and that's one of the arguments against like speed controls as well, speed humps and stuff like that. Generally, the speed humps that we have on Azeel are going to be much more drastic than what they have on Harbor Island. Now, the road noise, I don't think that's I would not say that was a truthful statement on Harbor Island because they already had speed humps there. We replaced it with a much more gradual speed table that allows you to go more at a higher speed over those. So there's no reason why you would be able or why you would be seeing increased road noise on Harbor Island. On Davis Island, I also don't know about that either because we just installed that within the last month or so. We haven't received any impact or any complaints on that. So that would be the first I've heard on both of those locations. But I can tell you for Harbor Island, we've gotten significantly positive feedback on that, and people like them both as opposed to the speed humps, and also people who were against the speed humps like them because they can still go at a like kind of a faster clip, but we're just trying to get people to travel the speed limit, not to slow down to like 10 miles an hour, 15 miles per hour like you have to on the speed humps.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Next question is from Angela Raber. What are the plans for the portion where El Prado narrows to 2 lanes at South McDale to El Prado?
If y'all can bring that slide up, we're looking at sharrows there, just the painted sharrows, and adding a mid-block crosswalk kind of midway between MacDill and Bayshore, but we're not removing the on-street parking and the loading zones that are currently there. And the utility poles that you see in that are actually going to remain because there's a right-of-way issue there that we don't have right-of-way. So we're going to try to cross people, give a crosswalk right in advance of where those utility poles that are currently in the middle of the sidewalk, give people an opportunity to cross the street there through a mid-block crosswalk.
Next question is from Maria Moroto. Why spend $3 million on this change that is not needed? There are other projects that could use this money.
So the $3 million is for the entire project. So that would mean, regardless of the bike lanes, the project will still, the project for the sidewalks and the resurfacing would still cost the same amount of money, regardless if we put bike lanes or kept at a vehicle lane. So what you're saying is that you don't need your roadway resurfaced, you do not need your drainage fixed, you don't need traffic calming, you don't need sidewalks. I think what people are trying to say is that they don't want the bike lanes, but that $3 million includes, the bike lanes don't add cost to the overall cost of the project. The bike lanes are the same cost, the project's gonna be the same cost whether or not we add bike lanes or not.
Next question is from Peter Lopatin. You stated you did traffic study averaging 4,200 and 9,000 annual daily vehicles, but are you taking into account the surge influx and increasing number of new residents, or the new residential apartments being developed on West Shore Boulevard that will increase traffic? Specifically, when you are taking away 2 lanes, how is the future and growth even being taken into account?
Okay, so as I said before, it's another traffic capacity volume question, which we've already answered. But the lane, removing a travel lane, the 2 lanes that we are plan on remaining will still handle much more traffic than they can handle today. So you have capacity even with 2 lanes. You have the capacity that you need for increased traffic in the future.
Next question is from Yolanda Fernandez. Are there any plans to coordinate this project with a bike sharing program?
No, we do have bike share. We have a bike ped engineer that kind of oversees that program. We wouldn't really need to coordinate with them unless you're looking for maybe adding bike features or like a bike share kiosk or something like that. But I can send the comment into our bike ped coordinators, see if there's any plans to add any of those kiosks around that area. The one thing I will say that we touched on before, but looking at these as bike lanes, they should be considered micro mobility lanes, because it's not just bikes, it's also e-bikes, electric bikes, and scooters that have the ability and per state statute can ride in these lanes. So it's more than just bikes, human powered bikes. It's also some electric assist bikes and things like that. So, but I can forward that comment on and see if there's any answers to that that we can provide you.
Next question is from Carol Ann Bennett. Is street parking, guest service providers, delivery trucks legal in El Prado now?
I don't know that one. That was actually one of the things that I would, I don't, Bruno, do y'all have any answers to that? Like the delivery trucks and when they put their flashers on, or landscape vehicles, is that currently legal?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either, to be honest. I think it is for landscape, because they usually require landscape vehicles, or they're supposed to get like MOT certification. MOT is like a where you put the barrels or the flags up. So I believe that they can do those minor landscape things, but that's only on DOT roadways. I don't know if we require them as a city, or what the actual legality of that is. But if you consider it, I mean, like you really kind of have a stopped vehicle whenever you have a garbage truck or a mail carrier. So I don't really understand how that wouldn't, there's not some kind of legal provision in for delivery vehicles or something like that, but I really don't know. That's a good question.
Next question is from Simone Sanfilippo. What are the plans to fix the drainage? When it pours, it floods.
So Chris can go into a little bit more details. We're not going to completely remove the flooding. I got to come clean on this. South Tampa is at elevation approximately 7. And when it rains hard, you're going to get the flooding. What we're going to do is we're going to remove this stagnant ponding that you see here on this picture, where it just sits there even after the rain. You know, we've got these issues here, that the water is still there after the rain. So Chris and his group are doing the drainage, and they'll be able to take care of this. But during the heavy falls, the street is going to flood. It floods today, and it will continue to flood. The elevation is just so low.
Yeah, it'll be difficult to improve the conveyance of the stormwater along the roadway in the flat sections. There are sections that are just about flat along El Prado. There are some sections that might have opportunities for reprofiling the road to improve that gutter flow. So we'll be looking at that. And then within the intersections, you know, the sections specifically between West Shore and Hesperides, there are some intersections that are fairly poor. There's some pictures here that you can see on the slide. These pictures were taken within those segments. I think one of these photos was taken within the commercial section just east of Manhattan. You know, these areas can be improved by some minor regrading and overbuilding of the intersection to improve the drainage flow through that intersection. But those will be the things that we look at. And then obviously the inlets that are in poor shape, we'll replace those. If there's opportunities for adding inlets to improve conveyance and to get the water, you know, better out of those intersections, we'll certainly do that. Again, that'll be based on a case-by-case basis, and also looking at the dollars that it'll cost to make those improvements too. So we want to make sure we do the things that are within budget.
Next question is from Adam Fernandez. What is the anticipated length of complete closure of various sections of El Prado during this project? How long will homeowners not have access to their driveways directly from El Prado?
We don't have details on construction timing or phasing, so we won't get that until construction. Generally, though, the access to the homes, the biggest barrier to you guys is going to be if we're putting the sidewalk on the north side or we're fixing the sidewalk on the south side. It's the time to cure the concrete for the driveway. This is just generally speaking because we don't know the details of construction, but generally on a mill and resurface project, you don't have long street closures or anything like that. You don't have time, like full days worth of closures. It's going to be more of the sidewalk closures that's going to have to be coordinated with each and every individual resident on that street. But we will coordinate with each and every individual resident with our contractor when we get to that point.
Next question is from Simone Ceflippo. Will there be longer turn lanes? Will any sections of median be removed?
No. Are y'all looking at any left turn lanes? I don't think we had any left turn lanes.
No.
Yeah, okay. No, we're not looking at any median removals, and we're not looking at any left turn lane, any turn lane improvements on the left side. I do think we are looking at adding some right turn lanes in specific locations. Bruno, I think you talked about Dale Mabry, and I believe the church too was one of the ones that we looked at as well. So, and then also if we do any of the school pickup stuff, that might be kind of a shared use lane. So that might be an area too, but we're not going to be removing any median.
Next question is coming from Mike Fanning. So many people use Euclid as a way to get to Bay Shore to bike or walk. Is the sidewalk going to be continuous on both sides of the street?
Yeah, so, wait, on Euclid, I think I'm just going to go ahead and speak for El Prado. I think that's what he was referring to. Our project will build a continuous sidewalk on the north side of the road where there isn't a continuous sidewalk right now. Our project will also fix any sidewalk gaps on the south side of the road. The only pinch point that we have right now is the existing sidewalk that's on the south side of El Prado on the Brick Street section between McDill and Bay Shore. There's some utility poles. The sidewalk will still remain. The utility poles, we're not going to be able to relocate those at this time. So what we're going to do is, in order to provide an ADA accessible pedestrian access route, is actually build a mid-block crosswalk that goes across the street to the north side, so that people who use wheelchairs or have accessibility needs will be able to cross the street and go on the north side of the road to cross Bayshore. And then at Bayshore, we're planning an RFB crosswalk similar to the other ones that you have on Bayshore at multiple locations on Bayshore to go across the roadway there. So we will be providing an enhanced crosswalk on Bayshore Boulevard too.
Next question is from Tim Northcutt. Won't traffic decrease with one lane to the bike lanes and increase traffic on Beta Bay and Euclid?
No, there's still enough room, or there's still enough capacity on El Prado to handle the same traffic that occurs today. So people aren't going to choose Beta Bay and Euclid as alternative routes because they won't need to. The roadway that we're proposing will still handle that amount of traffic and then some. By the way, the delays on, I can't speak on Euclid, but the delays on Beta Bay are much more significant than they are on El Prado. So no one's going to go to a roadway that's, even after we do this project, no one's going to go to the roadway that has more traffic and more delays over a roadway, their preferred route that still handles traffic at a greater speed than the other roadway.
Next question is from Maria Moroto. How are you making sure that bikers follow traffic rules?
I mean, it's the same thing for how do we make sure that the vehicles follow travel rules. I mean, it's through enforcement when they're out there, when they're not. We're trying to, it's self-policing and creating roads that are safe. So it's not necessarily, I mean, that's it. The project's not going to do anything for people who choose to disobey the law. It's going to, those people are still going to exist on bike and on foot and in cars and every other mode. So that's not going to do anything there. I did want to address a comment that I saw on from a resident that said that people might be getting confused with what we mean by right of way in their front yard. So there's a piece of grass between the curb and your house. Your property line doesn't go all the way up to the curb. So there's a fictitious property lines that's where the right of way ends. And anything from that property line to the back curb is actually public property. It's City of Tampa owned right of way. So just to let people know, I don't know the dimension. I think it's 30 feet, but I could be wrong on that. Bruno, y'all might know offhand how wide that swath is generally, but that's the piece that we're talking about between the curb and your property line.
So if you go to, if you do a Google search on Hillsborough County Appraiser's website, you'll be able to see exactly what your property outline looks like. And you'll see that it does not, like Kel is saying, does not extend all the way to the roadway curb. It's shy of that. So we would be putting the sidewalk technically what appears to be in your front yard, but that front yard is not part of your property. It is maintained by you, every resident, myself included. I mow all the way to the curb line, but it is not my property. My property is, I have a sidewalk in front of my home, and my property ends on on my side of the sidewalk, that edge of the sidewalk that faces my house. The sidewalk itself and the grass between the sidewalk and the roadway is either city property, county property, state property, and that's the way it is. So my advice would be take a look at the Hillsborough County Appraiser's site, and you'll see exactly where that line is.
And I added that link to the chat. I don't know if everybody has access to that, but I put into the chat that Bruno was talking about.
Next question is from Millie Fielder. How does this project improve health when it will certainly impede traffic flow, leading to vehicle idling, leading to increased carbon monoxide and volatile organic compound levels? This goes against air quality goals.
That's not, okay, so while let's just overlook the fact that it provides for alternative modes so people aren't driving cars. The vehicle, you're not going to have stalled vehicles out on in the one lane, and they're going to be traveling slower, which both reduce air quality or reduce pollution. So that's not necessarily a accurate statement. So I don't, that the congestion that you have is going to be mostly at intersections, and that congestion is going to be exactly what it is today, because the intersections control the capacity, not the nodes. So the long straight tangent portions aren't where that traffic happens. So that traffic happens, it happens today already. So it's not going to be an increase in pollution with this project.
Next question is from Angela Labor. What are the plans for the portion of El Prado where it narrows to 2 lanes at South McDale to Bayshore?
We went over that too. We're just adding some sharrows and maintaining the parking or loading zone.
Next question comes from Kristen McMullen. Will there be any traffic lights added or removed in this project?
So the only one that we're considering for removal is Concordia. And we're looking at that in favor of, if we remove that, it would be with the addition or the installation of an RRFB, the little yellow flashers. But right now, we're kind of mulling that over. What alternative would be better? There's benefits and cost to both the signal and the RRFB. So we haven't made a hard and fast decision on that yet. But that's the only one that we're looking at. We're not going to be adding any other signals. The other, I mean, we'll be adding enhanced crosswalks. That's what's on the screen now. Those enhanced crosswalks don't have a signal, but they do have the yellow flashers.
Next question is from Bernadette Corey. Will bulb outs be introduced at intersection to enhance pedestrian safety?
We have one intersection that we looked at for curb, like redoing the curb line a little bit to tighten up the curb radius there a little bit, but we aren't looking at bulb outs for most of the project. There's also a portion in the proposed design would not tend itself towards bulb out. We are looking at protected intersections where we'll be adding some separator at the between the bike lane and the vehicular lane, and that would act as a bulb out in a way, because it would allow for a space for a pedestrian to kind of go out into the street before they hit a vehicular lane. And then the only other area that we are looking at doing like more traditional bulb outs or something similar to it would be the area by the commercial district from Manhattan to Lois.
Next question is from Maria Baroto. Stormwater improvements have been twice in the 25 years I have lived on El Prado. How will another storm improvement help? Will there be another increase to the water bill?
Like I said, the water bill should not be affected. She may be talking about the stormwater assessment fee. That might be what she meant. So the drainage that you have in South Tampa, as Bruno was elaborating, that's more of a bigger issue than one roadway. So the roadway is just going to be there to collect the water, but if it doesn't have anywhere to go, then the flooding that you experience in South Tampa is still going to happen. And, you know, that's living in South Tampa. What we will be doing with this project has nothing to do with stormwater assessment fees. This is going to be milling, resurfacing, and reprofiling to get rid of the ponding that you see like on the screen now. That ponding that just sits there and doesn't go away, we're going to try to get that into the inlets so they can actually go into the pipes and off to the pond and further on to the bay and everything else.
Next question is from Maddie Rockham. How will you improve the safety of pedestrian crossings at Del Mabry? Also, please consider students crossing at Sterling. We are very excited about the improvements.
Sterling's on the list, and then Dale Mabry, we were looking at one of the big things that we have are we're missing access to the ped buttons there, so pedestrians don't actually have paved access to push those buttons. Anything else I want to add, Bruno and Chris?
Well, the interesting thing is Del Mabry is also part of an FDOT project that's currently underway. So we actually have to coordinate with them because Del Mabry intersection, typically a DOT roadway project extends around the returns. Basically, that is the radial corners of the intersection. So the DOT is actually currently doing some improvements. We have to coordinate with them to make sure that we don't step on each other and undo what the other agency is doing. So right now, the DOT is currently looking at improving that intersection. We would be improving the other intersections, such as Sterling, for instance. We would be addressing that one. And we would do whatever DOT is not doing to Del Mabry, we would do it on our project.
Yeah, and that one is programmed for fiscal year 24 as well. Last I checked with DOT, so they're going to be happening with it right next to each other.
Next question is from Leonard Wolfson. There have been several references to a lack of bike riders on El Prado. Is it possible that there's a lack of bike riders because it is unsafe to ride on El Prado in its current configuration?
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier too. You know, cyclists will go where they feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to ride on the road. So they'll tend towards other areas. The problem with South Tampa is you have some pretty significant barriers, such as Del Mabry Highway and the Selman and the CSX railroad tracks that create barriers for people to cross. So a lot of local roads do not cross there. So even if you do want to ride a bike from West Shore to Bay Shore and you're not riding on a collector roadway, you're going to have to hit a collector roadway for the most part, at least one part of your journey. So that's a big point of what we're trying to do with this project.
Next question is from Tim Northcutt. Could you remove the median to allow for 2 bike lanes 5 feet wide and still keep 2 lanes each way?
We actually considered that, and it's so cost prohibitive.
Yeah, they had another several. We looked at that. Yeah, you're right. We looked at that from this consultant and other consultants, and it's like a, I don't know, $16 million project or something like that.
Yeah, this road really wasn't a great candidate for that type of improvement. And you also look at all those trees in the median; those would all have to be removed if that was the route we were to go.
Plus, you lose the median for turning and anything else. So, like we were talking about U-turns, you wouldn't have that. It would just be a double yellow line, and then we wouldn't have any of the safety benefits at all. All the traffic calming, everything else would go away.
Next question is from Maria Moroto. Why the push for a bike lane when there are very few bikers? This is a residential neighborhood, not a midtown neighborhood.
I mean, we kind of addressed that in some of the other ones about whether or not they're on that road, but there are a lot of cyclists, especially. I mean, they're getting to Bayshore. People are going to Bayshore even for recreational purposes, but regardless of recreation and everything else, it's a mode of transportation that actually works for urban core and adjacent neighborhoods. I mean, that's how people are able to get to work. And then if the low stress bike network that we're building will really you'll be able to use that as a viable mode of transportation to get to and from work to wherever you need to go. So, it's kind of like that build it and they will come approach, but the real reason why you're not seeing cyclists, which I mean, I also beg to contend with, because I personally had seen them, is that you're not going to be out there. They're not going to go where they don't feel safe.
Next question is from Maria Maroto. What is the ulterior motive to follow with this change? If there is not a problem, why do you want to change it?
There is no ulterior motive. It's what we've been saying all along, to produce a safe and equitable and a multimodal transportation city for the entire city.
Next question is from James Draby. Have there been any consideration of a stoplight or stop sign in between Del Mabry and Manhattan?
We aren't looking one at this project. With this project, I can check with our team, see if there's anything that any requests or anything like that we've gotten in during the years, because this isn't the first time we've ever done anything on El Prado. So we may have some plans, but I don't think we have anything at this time. But I will check to see if we had any requests at least.
Next question is from Kay Jacobs. With 3 new high-rises coming online in the next 2 years, do you envision more traffic on El Prado? MacDill is already over capacity with people trying to find alternative routes.
Yeah, MacDill is it's constrained. So is West Shore. It's a constrained corridor. But with the towers that they have there, like I said, the roadway, even under a road dilated condition, still has excess capacity to handle more traffic. So no, I do not expect those 3 high rises to significantly increase the traffic on El Prado.
Next question is from Maddie Rolcom. Do the plans include tree planting?
What do y'all have? We are looking at a little bit, but I think most of it's tree preservation more than anything. Chris or Bruno, do you want to touch into that a little bit?
Sorry, I must apologize. I was looking at the right-of-way on the Hillsborough County property appraisals, and I was getting ready to send Chuck a cutout. What was the question?
Are we looking at planting any trees in El Prado?
Oh, yes. We're going to put in some landscape in the commercial district area. Other than that, no. We're leaving the trees the way they are in the median. We're leaving whatever landscape is on the outside. But along the commercial district, that is the plan, and that is within something that Chris can highlight.
Yeah, so in the commercial section from Manhattan to Lois, there's a significant number of businesses through that segment. And so we have to take special consideration that we don't impact any of those businesses through there. We also don't want to take away any of the parking that exists along that section of the corridor. So there'll have to be some a little more heavy focus and attention on that section to ensure that we have a safe movement of pedestrians and bicyclists through that section without impacting or being impacted or creating additional conflict points with the patrons of those businesses, people that'll be parking in those spaces. Those spaces currently, similar to the driveways, the people that park in those spaces have to back out into the roadway. So, we'll look at some other ideas there for being able to, move those pedestrians and bicyclists through that segment. But with that, there'll likely be some additional islands, landscaped islands that'll have some additional tree plantings through that segment.
Next question is from Kate Jacobs. Will the new design hamper an evacuation route of those people evacuating from the area?
No, it's not an evacuation route. It's the area. I mean, it's not the main evacuation route, so it would just be the same as other areas.
Next question is from Maddie Rolcom. Will you be introducing a pedestrian crosswalk at El Prado and Bayshore Boulevard?
Yes, we're planning. Sorry, I had to getting my trash changed over here. We are planning to add a crosswalk at El Prado and Bayshore. Yes.
And it's actually a really nice one. So at Bayshore, if you can appreciate that the median is at a fairly good slope because the northbound traffic, oh, thanks, Chuck. Let me address this. So this is what I was doing when the question came to me about landscape, and I was a little frazzled. But the property appraiser's site, if you dig deep enough, it will show you where your property line is, and you can see that your property line does not extend all the way to the roadway. That piece of grass that is between the yellowish orange line and the edge of the roadway, that is city property, and that is where we will be putting the sidewalk. So this goes back a few questions back. This is a good example of where your property ends. Yep, right there. That is city property, and that is where the sidewalk will go. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. And now, as far as the crosswalk at Bayshore, the median along Bayshore has got quite a bit of a vertical difference. Northbound lanes are significantly lower than the southbound lanes. So we're going to introduce sort of a zigzag crosswalk to get the ADA folks and the pedestrians from the west side of Bayshore to the east side of Bayshore. And so we've got that already somewhat under a concept design. And like Cal said, we'll be using RRFBs, which are those rectangular flashing beacons, rapid flashing beacons, so that pedestrians can push the button and it'll turn the red light for the traffic to stop, and then provide the pedestrians a crossing opportunity.
Next question is from Lenise Underwood. How did you get your data for the support?
I believe she's asking like the where when I said we had support. Well, the chat log here, the questions that we have now are going to be published with the public meeting. So there's various questions and comments that we haven't been reading that generally, if they weren't asking the question, we gloss over them for time purposes. But we will publish that, and there's quite a few supportive comments there already. However, if you're talking about like where are we getting those support, opposition, doesn't matter, comments can be emailed into the city, and that's something that we always take into consideration when we're doing any kind of design.
Next question is from Marta Killian. Was there consideration of traffic cutting through to side streets when the road gets backed up? For an example, between Drexel and McDowell, people will cut through the neighborhood to get to McDowell.
Yeah, I understand. So the issue there, the reason why they're cutting through the neighborhood now is because the intersection is backed up. So when you do a road diet, the intersections largely remain the same amount of lanes. The lanes are going to go to the same directions. You have a left turn lane, right turn lane, everything else. If you can't improve the operations of the intersections, then you're still going to have the same people who are trying to cut through and everything like that. However, in between intersections, the people don't cut through because traffic is going through on the node. They're trying to get away or through the road. They're trying to get around the intersection. So you can expect to experience the same amount of neighborhood cut through traffic that you experience now. But there's nothing else I can say on that besides, yeah, it's going to be there just like it is now, but we're not anticipating any kind of increase because we're not changing how well the intersections behave or operate.
Next question is from Nicole Lee. Whether or not the bike lane is approved, will you still install the sidewalks to make walking on El Prado safer?
Yeah, the sidewalk, the north side sidewalks are programmed through transportation alternative funding through DOT, so yes.
The last question I have is from Lanice Underwood. What will you do about the bike lane from McDale to Bayshore? That is a concern for bikers. There are cars parked daily and narrowing the streets, and if you're talking about safety, that is not safe.
Yeah, so the bike lane, we talked about that too. We understand the issues there. In that section, the roadways is narrower, and we are looking at doing sharrows there. I understand it's not as nice as a bike lane, but the road is brick, which provides traffic calming. I know, also understand that that's not the best material to ride a bike on either, but there are options are kind of limited in that area. So our plans right now are to provide sharrows, but not to provide bike lanes.
Yeah, we're constrained in that area. We're constrained with the right of way as well as all of the residents that have already built up. That's their best option is to provide the share lanes to have the bicyclists share that lane with the traveling public.
That was our last question for the evening.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all, everyone, for coming on out. We do really appreciate the input that we receive from you guys, and we really hope that we continue this as a dialogue. And please feel free to comment and send those comments via the website or the email address, or give us a talk. If you'll need any more information, just reach out to us, please. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.